Do you agree that, it's time that we all wake up and take responsibility, even for our ancestors that did not know any better?
Been waiting patiently to have this kind of conversation. Well, guess what? It is Spirit Talk Friday with Mary. So welcome, Mary.
Hey, Kim. Hey to everybody out there.
Oh my gosh. I hope everybody is doing good and with all the chaos still going on. And just, oh my gosh, it's mind-boggling, and trying to function and just get back to some kind of normalcy,
Exactly.
And it's funny, Mary, because, when I'm trying to, meditate and get some insight and whatnot, I start lately, I've been doing a lot of talking. And it's like, well, what about this? And what's going on with that? First with the COVID, and then, now we got the Delta variant, and then, what's going on in, the political aspect of things. And then you got the economic side of things. And then, all this chaos. And it's like, how do we discern truth and what's truly going on? Sometimes we have to look inward. And then I was like, wow, this seems familiar. And me, I like going through history.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing a pattern.
Yeah.
I'm seeing, cycles that keep repeating itself. And I'm like, why is this happening over and over and over again?
Because we're exactly.
It's like, and I go to the spirit guides, hey, can you guys like step up or step in and, sort of help us out here?
Well,
And it's like, you have free will.
They will. They are. They always are. And we'll start with exactly what you said in the beginning was, if you want the answers, you got to take time to go within, period. As we start to notice things, in fact, I was just reading something about that in this book, and it talks about, it's a spiritual book. It's called The Infinite Way. This is by Joel S. Goldsmith. But the part that I was reading just a little while ago talks about all through a day, our thoughts, should be centered, even though they may be centered on our outer activities, making, a living, providing, all of these things. But the one thing that should be constant before that is to go within that meditation or prayer time, whatever people like to call it. But there's something that happens that voice, that power, that stillness. It's like we got to quiet. You got to take a few minutes, if you can, a couple times a day, but at least once a day, to quiet that. Go within yourself and ask those questions. And if you listen, you'll start to receive the answers. The trick is to that point too, is that once you start to do this, you have to believe what you get. A lot of people like to question in the beginning. That's perfectly normal to question. But yeah, talking about becoming, let's see, when it talks about our, it is not natural then that at some time during the day or evening we take time off to retire to our inner consciousness, which is the temple. Our inner consciousness can be worded in some of the spiritual books as the temple. That's our consciousness, and that's where we can find the answers, by quieting the outer world. And I believe that. I know that from my own experience. And you know from your own experience, that's exactly where we get the guidance and stuff. And as far, and I feel that the more that we train ourselves consistently to do that, the more powerful specific outcomes will be in our lives, because we'll have the information, the actions to take, the thought to think, the word to say. But outside of that, we will know how to handle anything that's going on in the outside world. We'll see the whole picture. Things become very clear that way.
Right. And you mentioned just a moment ago about temples, going back in history, even I would say about not just the Egyptian times, but even the Mayans, and all these pyramids were considered temples.
They were temples.
And that's where they went to connect to energy. It was very symbolic, even how they positioned the pyramids. So that sort of was like, well, that makes sense, because they were so majority of them were highly consciousness. And then you had I want to say classes of, there was a higher status, then a middle status, and a lower status. But the higher class had access to be able to tap into that, what they call it, mystical experiences, or, connecting to what they called those, I don't even know if you want to call it source, but back in those times, they described it in another way. And there's writings on it.
And yeah, exactly.
And then how times evolved and changed. And I mean, no one knows where the Mayans went, and then you get all the, the Greek then you got the Greeks, then you got, I guess the Hebrews, and then you got the Christians. They took what the word temple really truly means and turned it into a whole new, it's like a
it got a little
conception.
Yeah,
because I'm like, well, if this is a temple,
right, which is consciousness.
And would you agree that's been part of our issue? Is a false? Oh my gosh, I don't want to say false identity, but I heard it today. Falsity, because of the information that they took and changed it, created more problems down the line.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me like absolutely, as things got started to kind of twist and mold into something different and turn, what happened is that I feel that yes, at some points over time, that understanding, that consciousness, where they understood whether they were going within or actually several of them going together into this temple. Now, which is also, we kind of know, like you said, by the way they're structured, that's an energy vortex of itself. So there's a lot of energy, there's stuff going on, but they're going in with the one mind, all were entering in with the one mind, that consciousness. They were going in for the one purpose, the one mind, okay, to obtain information or, whatever they were trying to do, but they understood that this was a powerful. So what I think has happened over the years, like you were just explaining, is that humans, especially the ego mind outside of that consciousness, tends to want to turn everything outside of itself. So all of a sudden it became whatever they have become. Now temples can be places of worship and stuff like that. Nothing wrong with that, but it totally changed from an inner to an outer. And I feel that humans are great at doing that. When the ego mind comes in, it takes something that's supposed to be a very one-minded and kind of centered or inner experience, which and kind of turn it inside out or outside, and reverse it. And it's like, well, anything we do from the outside in, it's kind of backwards. It's got to be here and then out. We even know this as metaphysicians and spiritualists and philosophers and things like that. It's like, as scientists, we understand that, it's through us, our energy, whether it's personal or collective and group, is what creates the outer experience. So it makes sense. And when we sit out here and try to create with the outer experience, hoping to have that inner change or effect, it's back, we need to reverse that order, everything here first, and that one-mindedness, the centeredness, the temple, entering the temple for whatever reasons. But that's why, that's where I get a little, where I get my clarity on, like, oh, okay, well, that's one of the things that happen, the ego mind, whenever we have a mind that's kind of separates, whenever we have a mind outside of itself, outside of the consciousness, it sees things totally different. So it reverses the order or the natural process. And that's, why I think we can see, history repeating itself, not maybe in the ways we would like to see it. I feel that that's also, a part of why things, can turn out chaotic or not how we had planned. It's that kind of reverse consciousness order.
Well, and then, looking at research on ancient civilization, like I talked earlier, but there was, from my understanding, I believe that there was other besides the Anunnaki, pantheons. You've got, Enki, Enlil, you've got Thoth, Marduk, those were the sons of Enki. And it's fascinating to me because even reading the history and then how human beings were created, and then there was a couple, when, from my understanding and what I gathered, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, when I started reading about this, I'm like, well, it sort of makes sense of how that energy from emotional energetic traumas, now I understand how it was created, because when they originally came down here from Nibiru, they already had, protocols and lords and kings and stuff like that. So they come to Earth, stationed themselves like a military organization, and then started with, making Homo sapiens, which is human beings. They took someone else's, who was here first, DNA, and they took some of their DNA, and they were scientists. They were so highly evolved. I mean, come on, they came from a spaceship from another planet and managed to get here to Earth. So, and then it's like, wow, I'm seeing this pattern even from that time frame going back. Mm-hmm. And then the constant, the war, like they were having wars against themselves, even stationed, trying to conquer, one, I guess back in these times, it's like states, like mm-hmm. how it is in the United States. It was like that in the Far East, but the names have changed since then. But all they wanted to do was conquer and divide. And I'm like, look what we're doing today.
It's still, everything is still,
and I'm like, okay, so you guys created, these human beings to be primitive workers for the gold, the resources, and all of that. And then they started, at first they weren't reproducing. So they're like, we got to go back to the drawing board because we're not noticing them, reproducing. We need the workers, and then silly me, I'm reading this. I'm like, well, wait a minute. When you first created these beings, because apparently there were 7 males, 7 female. I'm like, well, were there babies when you created them, or were they like a clone, like in I want to say Body Snatchers, where they were in this egg kind of looking thing, and they came out and they were human beings. Like I visualize this stuff and I'm like, well, how did you do it? And then you had to take care of them, you know. And so then I go, all right, I could see a pattern. I could see like I'm connecting the dots. And then, you know, there was back in those times, there was 300 to 1,000, Lords Kings. That's where they came. They came, or not Lords and Kings, gods and goddesses that were here in human form. That's what they were called. But honestly, they were just aliens. They didn't know what we know today. They didn't have no knowledge, no understanding. They just thought these people from the sky are gods.
Right.
And God, gods and goddesses. There was 300 to 1,000 of them ruling, taking place, appointing, they were establishing a civilization. Then there were establishing not only that, but culture, a society, and then slowly, worshiping and all of that. I was like, wow, this is like really getting deep. This really goes far back to these times. And there is other books, other history that talks about timelines, 95,000 BC, 36,000 BC. And when I get to those numbers, I'm like, are we going backwards? Or I get a little confused because they do go backwards in numbers. And I'm like, BC, AD, huh? Which one is it now? But I find this fascinating that there's so much. Granted, yes, we see in history that 50%, and it's like, I think every 100 years, an event that takes place, they take 50% of the truth out and they give you a little bit. Would you agree?
Well, it sure seems that way, doesn't it? I'm like, I don't know if I've ever really contemplated that or been asked that question, but when you're asking me, I'm like, well, it sure seems like that's what's happening. But all the more reason it's important to find our own truth.
Yes, because spirituality is not inherited; it's discovered.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And so, I feel that, we take over time, we've taken the words of other people, the words maybe out of books, stories, certain history books that have been passed down, our trusted leaders, things like that. And we take that word, when our doctors and, we still have the mentality of, oh, well, if they say it, it has to be true. But that kind of thinking has to stop. It's not that you can't trust, leaders and things like that. It's just, take that and do that same thing. Go within. What does it sound true to me in my consciousness? Does it resonate? Is there any kind of truth? Or does it feel like it does not ring true to me at all? Then that's what you go by. That's the belief you have. You can do more research. You can dig in if it's something you really want more information on. So definitely, I say find your own truth with whatever's going on, or investigate it with an open mind.
Okay, I can understand as a teenager, but if you're a young child being brought up in whatever religion, you don't have that kind of common sense yet.
No,
you believe because we're recording everything. We're believing because it's an adult,
we're told we're looking to them for guidance, and we assume and expect that they will always tell us the truth. Why would they not tell us, things that are true? Absolutely. No, for children, whether it's in their families, church, school, all of these things, the child, I think that's where we've really got to start breaking the cycle, because if we don't, as individuals, we're passing that same old stuff down again. Now, maybe they'll be lucky and they'll grow up and they'll spiral out of some of it like we have and lots of people have. and find their awakening. But why? It's unnecessary. In conversations with God, God says you, meaning Neil, meaning collectively, we have the power to stop all suffering now.
We do.
Stop all suffering. So the first thing we have to do is it on a personal level. Stop the suffering. Stop. We don't have to. We don't have to fall into the dramas. We don't have to go into the dark. We can have these experiences, but it's like, you have the power. We forget that we are these massive energy bodies moving through, all this other energy. So there's this massive energy awesomeness that we are. Then there's this consciousness that's just so big, bold, and amazing, extraordinary consciousness. That when we all have this, we bring ourselves down to about that. And then we buy into all this human experience. We're here to have the human experience, but we don't it doesn't have to be, what it is. We can stop that suffering. We can stop it first in our own mind, ourselves, our own lives, becoming aware, and then passing that on to everybody, especially our children. Children, the Native Americans, older cultures and stuff, they believed in the children, raising of the children. They understood this was such an important process, and it was the elders that did a lot of the raising, which was their elders were 60 and above were elders and did a lot more of the communal raising of the children, because they already knew, they had the wisdom, so and when they thought about any major decisions that they had to be made for the tribe or for the whole, they planned at the very least 7 generations out. They said, how will this affect the children 7 generations out? That was brought to the table. It was discussed. The best decisions were made at the time. So, but again, you're talking about, people and times where they lived centered. They knew that to be successful, they had to go within. There was something else greater going on than just the life experience outside of themselves, and so it does make it easier to do it that way. But, for the average person walking around in 2021, that's not the case. And it certainly isn't as a state, as a country, as a world. I mean, there's a lot more of it going on, and I'm very grateful for that. That more and more people are tuning in and starting to kind of wake up, or at least keep an open mind and do things and think things they hadn't thought before. But we've come a long way, but we've got
still a lot more to go.
We got a long way to go.
But you mentioned about these tribes and, Native American and even indigenous, from back then, and the Mayans, some of, what evidence and artifacts that, have been left behind, not just the Mayans, but there was so many others. And you mentioned about conversations with God. Mm-hmm. And I recall, when he talked about sex and, highly evolved beings. And I remember him stating something to effect, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but he's like, enjoy and explore sex. And, that's a beautiful gift that I've given you as, creators. And he's like, well, what about, that having children? There's so many people having children and, the abortions and all this. And he's like, well, then you have the power to change that. It's not that, and it's your parents' fault for not, explaining or telling, but there is highly evolved beings that on it. He asked me something about, well, what is the age to have children? And God said 40 to 50.
Yes.
And then the younger ones, if they do have kids, the elders
do the main
raise them.
You're right.
And I was like, wow, that makes sense. And God even emphasized, he goes, because you haven't experienced enough in life. Why would you want to have kids at 18? You're still a kid. And
Right.
it's your parents and their parents that taught this from the beginning.
Right. You know, and these youngers all love and full of life and wanting this sexual experience and wanting to have kids, and they are perfectly equipped to do that. But they can't raise the child.
Yeah, a child can raise a child. And he goes, that's why when you're 40, 50, you're ready to have children.
Right. And they're talking about the elders should always be the ones that guide and do most of the, doesn't mean that we have to in our today's society, or that the bearers of the children, aren't a part. Of course, they're a living part of it, but as the wisdom, the real teaching comes from those who have already experienced life and found these truths and know how to, pass these things down.
You nailed it. Has already found the truth, not on a religion aspect or traditional, or the beliefs and the programmings from they just know now, like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have, now I understand.
Exactly.
And because I'm like, do you think I would let my, I don't think I want my kids to, be with my, grandparents, because in these times, but and you know what I mean.
Well, no, true, because it's not like, okay, we can sit there and go, well, there's no way in hell I'd let my, it's like a lot of us turn after that statement and be like, you don't know my parents or my grandparents. And true. Now, I'm not saying that people who never found it or were able to live healthy at all in this lifetime, well, they probably don't have a whole lot of that to offer any kind of younger generation, and that's okay. Definitely back in those days, it was more different. So what we're dealing with is a prolonged effect that continues to happen of old false identities, beliefs, systems that have been programmed and given and passed down for so long that now we have to undo it. So there's probably plenty of awesome people we would consider elders that we would love for them to pass down information to our younger ones. But it will be people like ourselves that, become elders. And I want that.
Oh, you and me both.
I want to be that for the generations to come. I want to be able to be that person that says, my gosh, here, take this little child, go sit down and talk to that old lady over there. You might learn something, I hope it's all going to be from here, and my,
have a children's retreat.
My journey of being human and finding the consciousness and learning how to be both in this body and in this world. How do we bridge the gap, when we come in knowing and then we don't know, maybe because of human life experiences in that process, and then we do know because we kind of find it again, and here we are, and it's like, oh my goodness.
Well, it's just like remembering. We're actually remembering
that's
who
it.
we are.
That's it. And when big things happen that are seemingly very uncomfortable, it is most of the time those things cause us to go back and remember. They cause us a little awakening, or they cause us to look within. They cause us to go to things or places or people that we otherwise would have probably had a closed mind to. But notice how when things get really bad or difficult, we get to the point where we're like, I'm willing to do anything, and then it's like, oh, wow, was that really that bad? In retrospect, it may have sucked, but it's kind of like the soul giving you like a little tough love. Like, you didn't get the memo. I really know what's going on. If you just follow the directions.
I love it.
know, and it's like,
Oh.
why? I don't want to follow that.
I kept
direction. Look, I can go over
pressing
here.
send you, like a fax.
Yeah.
Send, but it wasn't receiving.
It's right, because and that's why we need to go within. So we always get that. We're staying connected as much as possible. We're getting all the information, the memos and emails as they should come in. But when we're not doing that, that's when we'll get our own little wake up calls, for the people who are stuck in maybe still reaching out to new spiritual perspectives, but still kind of caught up in the old lingering mindset of religion or upbringings. I would just, say to them the same thing. It's like, just a little at a time, just start trusting your own, go within and trust your own experience. Ask the questions.
Yeah, ask
the question everything. Ask. Yeah, exactly.
And I learned that from Dr. Joe Vitale. He was the first, spiritual mentor when I was going through my own, I got to a point, it was like, if this is all there is to life, I don't want to be here. If the grass is greener on the other side, you better fucking show me.
Yeah, exactly. Or else.
And I just I was having actually, it feels like I had an argument with my ego.
Oh, most of the time it is.
And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Is this what it's going to be like here on Earth? I don't want to be here, and I don't want my kids being here either. This is bullshit, And I'm like, and I've read all this stuff and been to all these churches and did all this. And I'm like,
right.
It never felt right or real or authentic.
And the first thing
that's actually what I was struggling, even as a kid, when I questioned things. And then because we're taught to don't disrespect, honor and obey your parents.
Right.
Elders know what they're talking about. This is the word of God and all this other stuff. When you it's like being brainwashed.
It is. And especially as young children, when we're hearing these things, but it doesn't resonate, it's just not making sense. It's not making sense. And this is where it kind of gets critical in the parenting there, is because, you don't want to pass down these things to our youth, when don't take. First thing you got to realize is that most people, are living in this old stuff. And it's like, you don't want to pass that down. If we want to change it, you got to change it now. Allow the children to ask the questions, even if it goes against your personal belief. I feel, raising children is so incredible. But again, if you be still, if you just kind of really listen, if you get out of this and kind of into your energy, you kind of get into this,
how you're feeling,
your consciousness, right? Yourself. It's like, if you step back and look, it's like, wow, just allow them to explore. Children love to ask questions. Their minds they're so inquisitive. They want to know. They don't know. They're coming into this brand new, and everything we give to them is all they know. But again, they're these amazing beings. They may look like a small little child, but they're more than that. They just don't know. They're just learning how to do it in a human form. And they're going to want to know. And like you said, certain things never felt like they made sense or connected as far as religion or what had been handed down to your parents from their parents and stuff like that. And so I think it's very important to listen, let them ask the questions. And if you don't know the answer, tell them, I don't know, but maybe we can find out together. Let's explore. Even in this country, or I'm not just saying in this country, but let's just say, for instance, that's only been my experience. I haven't ever lived out of this country, so I really have nothing to compare it to. But if we were to go into the library and get books on history, we're going to get books on history, lots of it. But from whose angle? From the United States, from the people, it'll be from this one. So even that, what if I went around the world somewhere else and grabbed a history book out of the library on whatever, is probably going to tell the story a little bit differently. See, it's just, let them explore the whole picture. Let them get the whole box of crayons out and find what ones, they like, and start from there.
Yeah, when my daughter started asking me questions, because of what they were experiencing, and I knew of it because of some of my own personal experiences, that's when I'm like, I'm not going to, force you into what, because I was actually transitioning from, but it was my daughters didn't really have any friends. So it was certain small group of friends would be at some of the churches, and that's where I was like, just play, just
Right.
see, pay attention to what's being said, learn, certain aspects,
Right.
learn what sits well with you, what doesn't sit well with you, question it,
Right.
so that was hard. But then the more of the other stuff that they asked me, I'm like, well, let's do some research on it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's find out.
So I'm like, well, that's interesting, because I remember such and such, such and such. And, I started reading more books, and I started explaining to them what I read from the book. And I think that's where, it started.
Yeah.
But then I got to the point, you guys are getting, and the one thing I can honestly say is I got, I guess, backlashes for telling my kids the truth about Santa and the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy. Because I'm like, they get to a certain age when they start questioning about those things, be honest with them, because that's where you open yourself to, if you can lie to them on those things right there,
right,
you lose the trust in your kids later on. They won't trust you.
Exactly.
And I think that has to be, some of that aspect has to, like, when your kid starts questioning, you need to sit down and say, you know what? I've told them for the longest time that the spirit of Santa Claus, and then I gave the history of where it originated and how in times, in changing and evolving, it got to this, what it is now.
Right.
But the spirit of giving and joy and, decorating and whatnot, it's what you take and put into your own.
That's right.
Yeah. And I'm like, I couldn't tell you about the Easter Bunny. I don't even know how that got started, but I know there was something about the eggs being fertile, and there was a ritual kind of thing so women would get pregnant. I don't know where the bunny came in, but
spring. I don't know. I've never really done any research, but yeah, symbolically to different religious approaches from around, you can see how bits and pieces kind of intertwined to that story. Yeah, we're funny.
Who knows about the
humans
Tooth
are
Fairy,
funny.
That's just like,
aren't humans funny?
I'm like,
we're so funny. But I will tell you, but it's true. It's like when I was raising my children. Now I'm just here as a guide. I mostly saw myself as a guide. There came a point when my kids were little. This is one of the things I'm very, very grateful for. I did have the ability, the most awesome experience in raising my kids, that I was growing fast, really fast in my own consciousness and awareness and spiritual journey while they were small. And one of the greatest benefits, and it was so interesting watching my mind almost separate, like you said, the ego mind to the regular mind. As I would start to become aware, and as I would, use my own mind, my own energy, my consciousness, but I would start to become very aware of the way I was parenting, because I started to watch. If I stood back and observed the process, observed myself, their behaviors, I started to watch. I stood back and I was observing, day-to-day interaction and the way I reacted. And so I started to see there how many times I would feel a way to approach a situation and I would immediately go, but deny that and go back with what was given to me as the proper way to handle it. Once I started to see that, I was just overjoyed because then I could start to change it. I said, it took a couple times, but then I got the courage. I'm like, no, you're going to throw that out. And what sits and feels right here, how to approach you. I was being given and guided, whether it's my own soul, God, spirit guides, whatever you want to call it. There was an inner guidance in me that was showing me the exact and proper way to talk, raise, teach those particular souls that I was in charge of guiding. And it became so amazing. Now, there was a lot of points of ridicule and misunderstanding. A lot of people couldn't understand the way that I parented or raised or interacted. But then there was a lot of people that were more aware or observant that loved it. They couldn't believe it. Oh my gosh, I would have never thought of it that way, which sparked awareness and helped them in their parenting. But what a difference it was, because what happened within myself that I noticed that was super cool was that I noticed at first I was denying what was coming up as my truth on how to do this. And I would go back to the old approach. Well, no, deny that. This is what's been taught to me. This is the way that I'm supposed to handle it, And so I started to stop and I started to say, no, this is how, if this is what I'm feeling, seeing, and being guided, this feels right. I don't care if nobody else in this world has ever done it before. I'm doing it. And the more I started to do that, I watched everything change. My whole world changed. The children's world changed. Like the whole, it was just such a cool process. And it was such an awesome awareness during this time frame of maybe a year, 6 months to a year, when it was really becoming aware and clear, and I'm making these changes. And I couldn't believe it. It's one of those things where you feel like finally a light switch, or you won the lottery. You're just like, oh my God, this is how, And so from then on, from that point, I relied mainly, I would still fall back here and there. Who doesn't, but mostly, and most of the time, I stayed connected. I would go to what I felt and not go back to the old stuff. And I would go to what was my consciousness and telling me what was I feeling at that moment. And it ended up being like amazing. I'm not saying they don't have hard times. I know that raising children and maintaining a household and making a living, those can be, fun, but very challenging, especially for some of us who have done it on our own with, single parents. It's not the easiest journey, but it's a journey, and it can be very sacred. And sacred meaning, again, that temple. It can be very different than what it is for a lot of people. But again, it goes back to kind of just everything we were talking about, the responsibility, which is actually liberating, and freedom is when we understand it ourselves and we can offer that. We trust it and we come to believe in it. And we rely upon that power, that power, which we are, to do the work, rather than that brainwashed intellect, human ego mind that we're so used to falling back on for guidance and truth.
And everyone has access and capabilities of tapping in and connecting to that.
We all have it. I'm telling you, I love my gifts. And I don't know, I don't even know if that's the proper word. I don't know if there's a proper word for it. I love that I am intuitively, psychically, all the clairvoyance, clairaudience, medium. Oh, I'm so sensitive, and I understand energy. So, that's like one of my gifts, if you will. But we all have it. All of us. We all came from that same body, that energy where we all have it. It's just a matter of tapping into it. Maybe I do have the ability to see it and maintain it and tap in on a different level more easier than some people, but it doesn't mean that we don't all have it. We all have it. We all have intuition. We all have that sixth sense. The sixth sense is just realizing that there's so much more real than what we can touch with our five senses. And even with the logical mind, it's that gets its information, through
You have to go to nonsense to get, from the subconscious that has been programmed even while in the womb.
Yeah.
From the energy of what was going on in the womb from mother.
Exactly.
Then child comes in and it's a soul taking its first breath, and then it doesn't know anything.
I know.
So now I look at babies as little souls and I cry for them. I'm like, oh, God, help you, God. Bless you, God. Bless you, being. Bless you, soul. I just like, and then now it's like total opposite when somebody dies. I'm like, wow, they made it home. They went back home. They were ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I cry at a birth now. And I know there was a scripture that said, I think Jesus supposedly, because this is coming from a third source, not Jesus from his autobiography, said, cry when a child's born, but celebrate when someone dies. Now I get it.
Right.
Because I'm like, you got to start over. Like, oh God, what were you thinking? Oh, Lord,
Right. It is, because it talks about, in Conversations with God, it talks about it sometimes, because our souls, who we are outside of this body, outside of this experience, is so great, and we know our greatness, we know our capabilities. So when we come in to a place where it can be like being human, which can be it's much smaller, denser, it's like, oh, we forget all that greatness so that we can have this experience. But it's like, oh my goodness, life can be amazing. But the thing is like you were talking about the trauma, first life and death. Yeah, what we call life and death, birth and dying. It is the opposite. I feel we need midwives at both. We need them at the birth and we need them at the death. We need people who are who understand the process, the beauty of the process, that are going to hold it quiet, no drama, sacred, healing, loving. First, when you come in, and it should be the exact same on your way out.
On your way out.
Right, if possible. Obviously accidents happen. You can't be there for every passing, but you can still hold that energy. You can hold that mindset. We can bring that to life. Now, as far as, again, an inner truth, I would never say this in the wrong context, that people, who have lost children or have lost parents young or things like that, it's not to minimize that. It's heartbreaking. We're still here to have the human experience, and a lot of times we don't understand, and that's okay. It's okay. You find your way, you find your healing, and you move on. But for an overall and a deeper spiritual talk, absolutely, there's no tragedy, and the soul does not see this thing as dying, what we call dying, which is just another passage in life.
The soul leaves the body, and when the soul leaves the body, and I believe that, in a soul level, in our soul form, when you talk about, soul contract and in the Akashic records and whatnot, or the book about everything, from our past lives to our present now.
Right.
And with others, we're just souls in a human form. And when, especially a young kid or a teenage child, sibling, loved one, in a tragic way. It just, that's how they chose to leave.
Yeah, and exactly. And then, a lot of times, it is grievous. I mean, think about anything that we grieve as humans, or any kind of ending. There's, whether it's subtle and tiny, whether, or large to, unexpectedly losing a family member or something like that, to, oh, I just moved out of the house I lived in for 10 years. I loved it. Or making little changes or relationships. There's always a little grief process. There's a process of an ending, of allowing that space of that to go. That is no longer with me. I will never probably have that exact same experience again. You're going to feel a sense of loss, whether it's for a minute or for a lifetime, but I think still just having, allowing those experiences. First of all of our little endings prepare us for larger endings. I believe that. And beginnings too. You can't have an ending without a beginning. They're like right here. As soon as something ends, something new is beginning. So we can, as humans, get easier. How am I going to show up, or how am I going to experience this process now? And each time maybe we'll get a little better. Maybe it is the first, maybe that relationship, or losing a job, or moving on to seek out another dream, and letting go of the old that is familiar, and you're like, oh God, I can't believe I just did this. But but I feel that even the smaller ones, they get us prepared for larger, turning 18. Wow, these kids, wow, I'm an adult, and it's like, whoa, wow, these, and some of these older cultures, again, I think something that could be brought back and be very useful if done properly, are understanding these rites of passage, and teaching, really integrating these in our own lives, and then people we work with, our children. These rites of passages were set up to allow exactly that, the experience of the joy of leaving one space of who you are or what you were familiar with, but the opportunity of you're gonna come with this new phase of your life. I think psychologically, spiritually, and emotionally, these are really awesome tools, and they've mostly have been forgotten, or washed down, or warped again into an outer experience of the ego kind of mind, and have lost, if there are still any left. A lot of them are kind of lost or very watered down. But tradition, older and traditional ways of rites of passage were so common in, like you said, the indigenous countries and tribes and clans. This was something, and probably even going up earlier than that. I mean, I think we kept some of these sacred rituals and ceremonies, but they
the shamans,
right? They weren't just, I'm going to do this because it feels good and it's spiritually, whatever. No, there was a whole purpose. They could see this was going to, when done correctly and put together right, this was really going to change. This is going to show and guide them. It's going to make them okay with the ending and the beginning. And then another phase, we're going to end this, and all the elders are going to be there. All your youth at this age, we're going to end this, so that we can begin to this next phase. So in that manner, I think it does prepare people for their endings and beginnings, starting new, stuff like that. I think it's a valuable tool that got lost or very watered down, over time. And I think I would love to see some of that come back into, mainstream, or like if it were to say, spiritual groups or churches or practices, whatever people are into these days. But again, though, with the wisdom, the going within, do our work first. Look, if we can't do our work for ourselves first, we have no business trying to tell somebody else how to do it. I mean, we can do it along with people. I mean, we do learn and grow that way. But it's going to be pointless for me to say anything if I haven't, even got myself. How am I going to help you figure something out if I haven't even helped myself figure it out? So always I feel the clear message is that we have to take first, and it's cool. You think about it, and I think Michael Murdad, a spiritual teacher that was in my life very young on my spiritual journey, but he said it like this, and I never forgot it because it made, as soon as he said these words, it made total sense. The order of things. First, God, especially he was talking, I think, more about relationships and love, but I use it for everything. Proper order of a relationship or doing things should be God, self, and then others. I'm not afraid to use the word God. Everybody by now should know that it means whatever your understanding of that is. However, understanding who and what we are, that power, that source, that connection, there's our consciousness again, that power source that we are, that's who we are. Then ourselves, again, taking that love, that responsibility, bring it back to ourselves. How, am I doing these things for myself? Am I healing myself? Am I loving myself? Am I working things out? Am I change shifting? Do it for yourself first. If you can't manage that, you certainly can't manage, sharing anything with anybody else.
Yes.
And I think that you can't give something you don't have. Well, yeah, here, let me try to give you a brilliant painting. Well, I don't have it. How am I supposed to gift you? Here's my gift to you, but I don't have it. I have to have these things within myself. And it's not, and I feel my journey in finding all that has been glorious and wonderful. Because it's so freeing. If you want freedom, go take a trip with yourself. Seriously, go in, look at everything. Don't cry. Okay, cry about it if you want, but you can look at things and you can say, oh wow, we'll find out what they are. Take anything that doesn't work, and if you either turn it into an asset of love in your life, or go ahead and say, you know what, I really don't need that anymore. That was great. It's, but let's get rid of that and make room for more of who I am or what I want to see.
Or realize, like a self-realization of, wow, oh my God, I experienced this and I just don't like this experience. I don't want this experience anymore, and then, okay, how can I change this experience to a better experience?
Yes. And a lot of times that's how we find out, and it makes it easier to move into what we do want or what we want to see or feel or experience, is by when we start looking in, a lot of times you're going to find the things that you don't necessarily want. But it's a nice way of finding out what you do want, is to start with realizing what you don't like or want anymore. And it's like, wow, I've been running around unconsciously not knowing that I didn't like half the shit in my life.
Yeah, right.
And then all of a sudden, one day, what was I thinking? I don't really like that. I don't really like you. I really just never saw myself and supposed to be here at this, So then you can make those changes. You can say, you know what? Wow, all of a sudden, I've been living in darkness, totally unaware that I was unaware, that I was living with most things that I disliked or didn't necessarily have a use for in my life or serving me.
Yeah. And I think that's just the journey in the adventure in life is how else are you going to gain knowledge and wisdom unless you don't experience what is good or not good for you.
Exactly.
Other people's experience is different than our own, like what yours is, what mine is, but we're all in this together.
Mm-hmm. It's true. No, it's true. Definitely. Our experience, in my opinion, is the greatest teacher, because if you haven't experienced it, now there is that knowing, that inner knowing is very real. I do believe, I learn from people who have gone before me. Sometimes I don't have to have the experience. I can hear, read, or talk to, or say, okay, that feels so real to me. I don't even have to question it. I know that's true, but for the bulk of it, experience, it's what we experience. And, when people, just don't, stop denying who we are, stop denying your own experience to stay locked in someone else's truth or mindset.
Well,
we don't even know how they came up with those truths.
Yeah, Yeah, that's a whole nother, we'll talk about that on a next Friday.
Let's start making a
I'm
list
so
of
glad.
Fridays.
I know, I love this. Friday, Spirit Talk and Advice. And like, in wrapping this up, if there's anyone that is experiencing something that they really don't know where to go to, get advice, please DM me on Instagram, Wake Up with KC, or you can email me at wakeupwithkc@gmail.com. And I'll put it on next Friday's episode. And I don't have to, just, Candy from Kansas. We'd like to know this is what she's experienced, and we can like channel and get insight to help you have a better understanding. And that's why I started this for Fridays, to help people like you, especially if you're younger and you're starting to experience things that you don't know if you can, share with your parents, if they're not on that, if they're not on that, or have knowledge and wisdom and experience of going through what we've been through. And you're starting to experience things, reach out to us. We're here to help. We are guides. And
absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, if they want, and being that Kim is extremely intuitive. She's consciously aware. She's spiritual. I am as well. I don't know if you call it. I am a psychic. I am a medium. I have all the clairs. I work with energy. I don't know how else to explain it, to put it into words. I'll just say this. Yes, reach out to Kim if you have questions. If there's something you need, if it's something you need intuitively answered, allow us to be that channel for you, to be the medium for you, and offering you this guidance and help. And there'll come a point when you have a nice solid foundation, you'll be able to sort some of this out and have your own experiences with some of your own gifts and stuff. But in the meantime, I know I'm available. And so getting a hold of you, we'll read them out loud. We will answer them on the show. Any topic, question, things that you feel that you really want some guidance on, or just to hear spoke about, get some other ideas and conscious opinions on, and not even opinions, but conscious connection on, that's a better word. That's what we're here for. That's the show.
And yes, and Mary is very good. I mean, seeing, hearing, and she's also a certified hypnosis therapist.
Yes.
And she could even help you even remotely through hypnotherapy if there's something that we need to tap into to get to the subconscious to reveal something. That's her specialty. That's her expertise. And she is amazing at that. I can tell you that right now.
Firsthand, Kim's had several sessions. It's transformational, multidimensional, this and clinical. It doesn't really matter. I prefer, and always, anything in my life is spiritual attached to it, because that's what's happening in my life. So it's the energy and this and the spirit behind it. So when using the hypnosis, definitely keeping an open mind. I'd like to treat everyone as a spirit, mind, and body. But it's profound.
And add on to that, I look at it as you tap into the subconscious mind.
The subconscious mind
that holds answers and truth.
Everything.
And like being, I'm consciously awake, and I've came to you as like, I'm struggling with this. I can't figure this out. Why does this keep happening? Or, I don't understand how I can't, get a job, or why is the finances keep going to this level, and things like that. Even in relationships, like, am I attracting, or what's going on that's programmed in my subconscious that I'm not aware of? And that's why I went to you, because I knew there was something that I wasn't catching.
That's right. Because whatever, a lot of times subconsciously, again, that's held in the subconscious. So consciously, a lot of times, like Kim just explained, we may hit roadblocks and or walls. Like we'll get to a certain point, we're like, oh, why I can't seem to break this last or get through this thing, and it's because it's hidden in the subconscious. So subconsciously, there's stuff there. Now, so all the information is there. So by being able to, it's hard. It's very difficult to try to get to the subconscious through the conscious. It's very difficult. There's so many easier ways to do it. And the best way to access the easiest and best and powerful way that I have found to access it is through hypnosis. You can do it through meditation and stuff like that. But when it comes to bigger things, I would definitely say find somebody that, you definitely want to get somebody that can work, that understands and has the tools to get you to that place where you can bypass the conscious mind, just go straight to the subconscious. The answers are there. It's what's been recording everything about you since the beginning of you, depending on how much of you believe. It could have been a million lives, one life. If you believe that this is the only life you have, it doesn't matter. That's fine, because everything about you, every feeling, every emotion, every thought, everything is stored in the subconscious. It doesn't go away. You can't hit the delete on that. You can go back and gather the information. You can change. You can definitely change things, but you can't wipe the subconscious. It's not like there's nothing there. Everything's there.
And there's a saying,
and it feels amazing. If you've never been to a hypnotist, I don't care for any reason. If you walked into, I don't know about all hypnotists, but I will say hypnosis feels amazing. You're never going to be as relaxed as you are when you go into hypnosis. When you come out, you just feel amazing. It's such a good feeling because to get that relaxed.
Oh yeah. And it's a saying is sometimes we get in our own way.
Yeah, we do.
And I'm like, I want to get out of my own way, so I need some help. And there's sometimes where I call you and I'm like, let's have a session.
Let's do a session.
Or then a lot of times now it's okay. I'm feeling some things going on and I feel like we need to channel, and then we record it and then we find out what's going on.
Exactly. We've done several several times.
Some of them have been wild. Like, holy shit, did that just happen?
Oh, we've had, man, get involved. Talk about becoming supernatural. When you start getting into, energy and all this, it becomes very supernatural. Think about that word, supernatural. Woo. Beings. And some amazing stuff definitely happens.
I look forward to more of these Fridays because I have a feeling something's going to blossom and other great, amazing things and experiences are going to happen. Just
we already know.
I know. I don't want to be a spoiler alert or anything, but you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Mary, it was a pleasure. I look forward to next Friday, and it's going to be exciting and amazing, and it's just always an honor and a pleasure to be in your presence and connect with you energetically.
I love it, and I'm so happy and grateful to have the opportunity to be doing these Friday spiritual talks with you. This is amazing, and there's more amazing things to come. I just know it.
Yeah, I feel it. I'm getting goosebumps and I'm getting hit. I'm like, oh, okay.
What's really funny is pre-show, when we're on camera before we go in to go live, I'll be thinking a thought and Kim will get hit. And I'm like, I didn't even say it. I was just thinking and about something we could talk about on the show. And she's getting struck by lightning over here, zapping and everything. She goes,
that's
like,
my gift.
I said, well, I was just thinking, and it happens all the time. I'll think it and she'll start getting hit, and I haven't even had a chance to say it. Like, it hasn't even come out of my mouth. I'm like, oh, here we go.
And that's how I connected to my gift.
Yes.
It's like truth alert, or you're speaking
energy.
Truth that resonates with the spirit. And that's what I do. That's my gift. One of them.
Yeah. One of them for Kim. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever told anybody on the show, but one of her gifts is just that. It's like she experiences these massive amounts of energy that just kind of come in like a lightning bolt. That's why we call it getting hit, like a lightning bolt to her body, and a conscious, like everything about her just like gets hit. And it's cool. We can laugh about it. We can laugh about it now. There were times at the beginning when she didn't understand, and it wasn't as funny because she was. I remember you coming over the office one time, and you had gotten hit. They were talking about it where we were trying to figure it out. You're like, I don't know what's happening to me, but and I was reading on it. We were tapping in, and you're like, because it happens when I'm driving. It just happened when I'm driving, and I'm trying to hold on to the steering wheel. And I'm like, okay, hold on. We're going to sit down. We're going to get to the bottom of this. I'm going to read you. We're going to find out what's going on. But that was it. And you,
oh my God.
That was the very beginning of you getting hit.
Yeah.
And figuring out what does that mean? Why do this? And that, yeah. Led to.
And the longest time, Kenny Chesney, whenever I'd hear, it would start happening. I'm like, what the fuck is it with Kenny Chesney? You know, like, huh?
All of a sudden, she's getting hit.
Like,
but she
that's not my soulmate, is it? Like, really? Yeah, I don't know. Like, why is it whenever I hear his songs and it's like one note, two notes, bam, I'm getting hit. I'm like, oh my God, really?
I know. But we're
able changed so much now, and then now I'm speaking languages that I have no clue what I'm saying at the moment. But I feel like there's a transitioning happening to where I will be able to. It is a process, so I'm looking forward to doing more of that. Because I'm getting hit at the same time when I'm channeling, so it's a little.
Yes.
Not as nice as I'd like it to be.
Yes, exactly.
It's like electricity going through my body and I'm trying to speak a language.
No, I know. Oh my gosh. And then there's times when we're together and you're speaking or you go into that trance and all the languages come out. Yeah. And there's times when she'll be speaking and I'm getting hit because all of a sudden I don't know how I'm understanding. It's like as they're bringing it through her, I am getting the information. So we don't understand the language. Half the time we don't know what language it is, but there's a knowing. It's like we understand you're channeling, so you don't really even remember some of it. Sometimes it comes through so hard and fast. When I feel some of the times when I've sat with Kim and it happens, all of a sudden I'm trying to translate because as she's speaking it, it's not, I don't know if I guess I'm just spiritually or psychically translating it, but I'm understanding what's being said. And then I have to try to tell it back to Kim. It's been a difficult, funny process.
But it makes sense.
The energy and the information comes so fast. I have to slow it down and process it to get it out. By the time I get it out, I'm like, wait, they just read like 3 pages in like 16 seconds. And I'm trying to like get it out and translate it.
Yeah. It's fascinating. It's wild. It's crazy, but I love it.
I know. Yeah.
Then I have to can I get a timeout now? Because my body. Because
it's having to be this conductor of energy. Wow. She needs a break. No more hits. At least for an hour. Could you give me an hour?
Oh my God. I remember when I told you about I called you out. I'm like, please call me back. It's important. It's important.
It was a
I was having sex.
It was a Wednesday.
And I reached this orgasm.
That was
on a whole nother level, and I was freaking out.
Having this out-of-body experience. She was had this heightened spiritual out-of-body experience.
Oh my God. I called you right away the next day. Yes. I was like, you're not going to believe what fucking happened to me.
What does this mean? What's happening? What's that? I'm like, well, you obviously opened some awesome portal through your sex.
Having an orgasm.
Well, there's something to be said about that, actually. But actually, there's something, that's another topic. There's something to be said about that. Think about it.
Let's have it. Wait, let's stop. Let's talk about it next Friday.
Okay, remember where we left off? Or
Oh,
take a
trust me,
little
when we're talking
note.
about sex, I don't have a problem with that.
Not just sex, but we just left your first out-of-body awesome experience with the orgasm. We are moving into the energy and power of an orgasm. What is that? Because obviously there's something
so
very
everybody
powerful happening.
Everybody has to tune in
Takes
next
you out of
Friday.
your body. Next Friday. Next Friday.
Mary.
We're starting
Oh my
off
God.
this topic with the most wonderful, amazing energy of
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait.
one of the greatest human
We
experiences possible. 2, sex and orgasm.
yeah, synergistic energy exchange at a whole nother level. So we're going to talk about it more.
Next week.
So thanks everybody for joining us today.
Thanks for joining us.
Hey, tune in next Friday. It's going to be juicy. It's going to get hot in here.
Do you agree that, it's time that we all wake up and take responsibility, even for our ancestors that did not know any better?
Been waiting patiently to have this kind of conversation.